Everyone, this is what your pastor didn't tell you. Today I am talking about the Ammon Hillman and Danny Jones second interview that they did. And look at that, surprise, surprise. Ammon Hillman is with us today, and it is just a coincidence that we are wearing the same outfit. That is just so odd, and didn't expect to see you. This is great. This is perfect. Okay, so I am going to do a couple of videos on this, but I just wanted to give you my really quick thoughts about the interview. It was a whole 2 hours long and all kinds of wild stuff that was said. So not everything's going to be talked about here. But with that being said, let's get into it. So within the very first seconds, I was speechless, and I was speechless. I was speechless because just from the very beginning, it was just things that were just factually wrong, just constantly from the entire thing. But the very first thing, pretty much, that was said. So Danny Jones, he says, "Hey, we have Ammon, the leading classical philologist." Okay, so anybody who's a scholar knows anything about scholarship knows that one, Ammon has written zero peer review. Okay, you don't become a leading classical philologist without writing any peer review. He's done almost no scholarly work to further the field. Additionally, his dissertation advisors didn't even like his work. Like, from the very beginning of his scholarly career, he has been rejected by all of scholarship. You might think about Carl Ruck. Oh, Carl Ruck is his fan, right? No. I have a video on my channel. You can check it out in the description where Carl Ruck disagrees on Ammon on tons of things, on a bunch of different things that are very important that completely debunk all of his claims. Additionally, Ammon doesn't know the first thing about philology or translating. So you might be thinking, oh, that's crazy, right? Because he's like so great and awesome. No. So you can check out Stephen Nelson's video on Myth Vision that will be coming out in a couple days here. And he pretty obviously shows that Ammon has no idea what he's talking about. Of course, you can check out my other videos on the topic that'll show you the same thing as well. Okay. Additionally, Ammon has done work in classics. Like, and when I say work, I mean his his degree. He has a PhD in classics, not in philology. His dissertation was not have anything to do with philology. He's not a philologist. That is a very special area of training which he just does not have. Why he says that, I have no idea. The only people that think Ammon is worth listening to is just random people on YouTube with no formal education in Greek or studying Greek history, nonetheless philology. Okay? You don't become a leading philologist just because a bunch of random YouTubers or a random people on that are following him on his channel think that he's just the best. That's just not how that works, okay? Two, a different topic. So right into the conversation, they start talking about why nobody will debate Ammon. Like somehow people are afraid of him. Like they're going to debate him and are afraid of looking stupid or afraid of being wrong. And the thing is, that's just like a nonsense explanation. You might be thinking, oh, well, why else would people not want to debate him? That's the obvious reason. They must be scared because they're afraid of being wrong. But let's think about it, okay? If you think that Ammon is wrong, you're not going to be scared of being made look stupid. If you think he's wrong, you think that there's no reason you would be looking stupid. Especially for the way that scholars talk about Ammon's view. The scholars out there that talk about Ammon's view, like Dennis McDonald or Kipp Davis or Daniel McClellan, they don't ever say anything good about his views, okay? They're not, if anything, they are way overconfident for about their views in comparison to, you know, whether they think that they could beat Ammon in a debate. No. it's it's just no, it's just silly. Okay. Um, Another reason why that's silly is there are lots of people that have wanted to debate Ammon, like Ali Rowan or Steven Nelson, and Ammon rejects their offer. So no, there's not like a long list of people that are afraid. There's actually lots of people that do want to debate him. Nobody is afraid of debating him. So as I said, it's completely against human psychology. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, on the other hand, some might be afraid of being associated with him. If you look in the podcast, Carl Ruck is mentioned a bunch, and Amon says all these like ridiculous, perverted things about him, like disclosing very private information. If I am Carl Ruck, who I seems like he thinks that Carl is his friend, if I'm Carl Ruck, I'll be pretty annoyed at him. Like that was pretty weird things to say about a friend on a podcast with that millions of people are going to be listening to. Additionally, think about Ammon's fans. Ammon's Many of Ammon's fans, they will go in comment section and say just the most random weird things like why was Jesus in a park at 3 a.m. with a naked boy? On videos that are just completely unrelated to Ammon Hillman. Now, sure, that helps the algorithm a lot, so maybe some people might like it for that. But otherwise, that's just annoying. It's just weird. It's just, I don't want to be associated with that. And no, neither do people that their scholarly reputation is on the line. They don't want to be associated with all these weird people just commenting all kinds of different odd things. Uh, Additionally, people don't want to debate Ammon because of time. Someone like Wes Huff has a billion things to do, and debating someone like Ammon, who has like what 60,000 subscribers or something, like that's just not going to give him the benefit that would be worth a debate. Like he's got a PhD work, he's got his YouTube to run, he's got all this drama with the whole Billy Carson stuff. He has a family, nonetheless church that he works with, all kinds of different apologetic stuff that he does around his like community conferences. No, like he just doesn't have time for it. To say that he's afraid is just silly. Like he's very confidently said that Amin is wrong. Nobody would be afraid if they are confident that he's wrong. It just doesn't follow. Additionally, there's no benefit in it. Okay, there would be no benefit in debating Amin except for maybe becoming more popular, and the ability for that to happen is just not going to be great. Now, maybe people don't think about if they debate him on the Danny Jones podcast, that'll give you a lot of viewers. Like I could see the benefit of that, but otherwise, most scholars don't have a YouTube channel. If you talk about like classicists, Amin says no classicist would debate me because they're afraid or yada yada whatever. But the thing is that there's no reason why they would debate it because like very, very, very few classes out there have a channel, nonetheless know about Ammon. So even if they did uh, know about him, like the chance of them having a platform to speak, like there would be no benefit for them. So why would you go and spend all of this time for no benefit like that? And additionally, scholars care about their own stuff. So on my channel, I interview a bunch of scholars, okay? And when I ask them for interviews, it's almost entirely on things that they've written on. And that's because people want to talk about their own work, what they've already studied. They don't want to go out of their way to study some brand new thing and learn all these other things about these arguments that they think are nonsense just to have a debate that would have no benefit for them. It just doesn't make sense from a logistics standpoint. Um, Additionally, debates are stupid. Scholars don't want to debate. Like, how often do you see actual scholars, biblical scholars, classicists go on debates? It's actually very, very rare. I mean, there are thousands of debates or thousands of scholars out there, and very, very, very rarely do you ever see anybody debate each other. Um, yeah, but so scholars have no reason to want to do that. Uh, Additionally, debates are stupid. Scholars never change their mind. For 99% of people, it's just a way to feel good about yourself for beating the other team. The followers that are watching this, no matter how clearly someone loses a debate, there's hundreds of their fans saying, "We killed them." Like, no, it doesn't matter how logical you can be in a debate. There's always going to be that group of people that say, "Oh, we won, we won." So from a standpoint of like convincing people, like that's debates are just not how you do it. And another thing, why would you want to listen to a scholar have to fire rapid answers confidently without taking their time to think about it? Like when I read a book, you sit down and you think, what are the objections to this? What is the argument for this? Let me conceptualize this. But when you are in a debate, like you have to respond fast. You don't have time to think about it. You don't have to go time to go check your sources, especially for someone like Ammon who just throws out all kinds of random, you know, hundreds of sources that in his different little videos, out of context, whatever. Rarely ever gives evidence for them, but it takes time to debunk each single one. That would take just hours and hours and hours. And there are actually people that have done that. Someone like Steven Nelson or Ali Rowan. But no, Amin doesn't want to debate them. No, he wants to debate Wes Huff, who just rarely comments on Amin in passing, barely knows anything about Amin. But no, he wants to debate Wes Huff, not people actually that know his stuff. It seems like an interesting coincidence. Additionally, what Amin should do instead of debating everyone he disagrees with is actually address the arguments that have been put forward. So, in all of the videos out there, Daniel McClellan, Kipp Davis, Joel Koretko, or Ali Rowan, soon to be Steven Nelson, he has not responded, or even videos like that I've done on my channel. He hasn't responded to any of them. And if he does respond, in the very few times he does respond, it's all mocking. It's like never actually dealing with the argument. Now I'm not going to psychologize him, but what's more likely, that he's scared to actually respond to people that are presenting arguments against his views, or that someone is scared to debate him? I think it's pretty obvious which one that is. All right, next thing. Gad Barnea. So in this video, in this podcast, Danny says, "Hey, look at what Gad Barnea says." And Gad Barnea is talking about how the Septuagint is a Jewish Greek. Like it's a special kind of Greek. It's Jewish. And so they play the video, and Amin literally talks the entire video while it's on the screen. You cannot hear anything Gad Barnea says. Just for clarity, Gad Barnea is a biblical scholar, but he also knows a lot about the classics, classical literature. So Amin just cannot help himself but feel comfortable. Let me restate that. He feels uncomfortable when listening to people he disagrees with. This is why he doesn't ever respond to people, and when he does, it's just like straw men of their arguments, or he doesn't actually address their argument. And this is a mental thing. Like, this is not something against his character. It's a mental thing where I'm almost 100% sure is that he feels uncomfortable. He gets anxiety. He probably doesn't even know he has anxiety about it. Most people that have anxiety don't even realize it. But he gets uncomfortable and he thinks, "Oh, that person disagrees with me. If I listen to him, of course it's all subconscious. It's all really quick, just like that." And he sees like, "Oh, this person disagrees with me." And in this video, it's pretty obvious that he laughs it off. He makes jokes. He talks the entire time. anything but to actually listen to the argument in the video. And uh, Danny in the interview, he's like, no, 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 wait, just comment on this. Like he's trying to get Ammon to focus on the video, on what Gad Barnea is actually saying. And the thing is, the crazy thing about all this is that what Gad Barnea said is actually extremely obvious, and it goes with Ammon's view. So everybody agrees, even Ammon, that the Jews wrote the Septuagint. Like everybody agrees that it's also written in Greek. Therefore, it makes perfect sense to say it is Jewish Greek, because Jews who were speaking Greek wrote it. And obviously, a very specific group of Jews that had their own culture. They might have had similarities with the other culture out there, but they still had their own group and culture. So naturally, they're going to have some words that are different, or their own way of writing. That's just how writing works in general. So for Ammon to act like there's just no way that he could even consider it, that it's so stupid, and that of course he's going to think it's stupid when he didn't even listen to the video, because he was making jokes like that awkward laughter that you feel when you're uncomfortable, like just anything to block out the pain of like possibly being wrong. I've never seen something so wild. All right, so next, they read through the greater questions of Mary, and the way they frame it is like, yeah, so Ammon's got all these views about Christians doing sexual things or whatever. They're so bad, and what they do in this video is Ammon reads from what they call the greater questions of Mary, like it has some significance for reading the actual Bible, like what actually happened. And additionally, they give this impression that Christians have just been hiding the text. They've been hiding this text about Jesus doing all these bad things, unspoken things, and the Christians are just hiding it. The Christian scholars they're not even looking at the real text, or they're hiding these other things that go against their view. Now, to anybody who knows anything about scholarship, that's ridiculous. Why is that ridiculous? Because there are literally hundreds and hundreds of arguments that are created every single day, that are published in peer review every day, that go against the typical Christian view on things, the conservative view. There are all kinds of things. So like this idea that the Christians or the biblical scholars are relying on the Christians for their scholarship, and that's why they're so blinded, is just nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense at all. On the actual text, it is a lost Gnostic text. And when I say lost, I mean we don't have a physical text. We don't have an actual copy. It is known through the writings of Epiphanius of Salamis, a 4th century Christian bishop. So this is 4th century. This is multiple hundred years after the Gospels are written. We have just that alone should give us reason to think that we have no reason to think this is any historical basis. Not only that, but it is a early church father. And it's not like they were historians. Bart Ehrman, who is not a Christian, who is one of those people that loves to create arguments that go against Christian narratives, the one that has made a living making money off of making arguments similar to Ammon, except ones that are actually evidenced, he says, one of the great questions for scholars is whether such a book ever really did exist, talking about the greater questions of Mary. It is mentioned only once in ancient literature, in a highly charged polemical context by Epiphanius of Salamis, a Christian heresy hunter who was prone to exaggeration and fabrication, who was incautious at best in his attacks against heretical sects in his book, The Panarion. So, like, we literally have zero reason to think there was any historical basis for this. We don't even know if it's a correct understanding of the actual group that he was talking about, if this group even existed, or if he was completely this writer Epiphanius was strawmanning them. Like, this is on the level of Billy Carson nonsense, where Billy Carson says, "Hey, the Jesus didn't really die on the cross, and here's that text," and then Wesley Huff is like, "Uh, yeah, that's a fraud. It's not an actual text that exists." Or he says, "That one was written way, 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 way later, like and clearly made up document." Okay, next topic there. Actually, one more thing. And and then there's also this conversation about talking about Carl Ruck. It's like, well, Carl Ruck is a classical scholar and he knows a lot about these drugs and he's friends with Ammon. So why doesn't he accept Ammon's view? And then somewhere along the lines, someone brought up that Carl Ruck doesn't consider this greater questions of Mary text. Like, that's for some reason why he doesn't accept Ammon's view. It's like, well, maybe he knows a lot about it and he thinks it's nonsensical, and that's why he rejects Ammon's view. Maybe he knows a lot about this greater questions of Mary text and thinks that there's no reason to think that it has any historical basis. Next, this one actually made me laugh out loud. I was like, I was shocked to hear this. So, for whatever reason, Ammon Hillman felt confident enough to talk about the Egyptians building the pyramids. So he says, we don't know the Egyptians built the pyramids because they weren't smart enough. Well, this is my paraphrase. They weren't smart enough to give us a language that could be passed down to us. So in other words, the pyramids were built. We don't know how it happened. And the reason why we don't know how it happened is because the Egyptians weren't smart enough to write it down. Like, that is wrong on so many levels. For one, we have a really good idea of how it was built. Oh, he also said that there was slaves that built it, which is untrue. Like, we literally have texts that talk about the people that were paid to build the pyramid. They were not slaves. Additionally, just because a document doesn't survive doesn't mean that the people that made it were dumb. Maybe they were not concerned about it surviving thousands and thousands of years. Like, that would be completely against the purpose of the text of why they would be writing it. Like, why would they care but what people 3,000 years or so, 4,000 years thought about why they or how they were building a pyramid? Just such a very odd claim. And also the Egyptians had plenty of documents that have survived. So it's like, so they were just not smart here, but they were smart there. Like, how does that follow? And additionally, Greeks had hundreds of thousands of documents that didn't survive. So couldn't you say, oh, well, those Greeks were just really stupid there. They weren't smart enough to create documents that could survive. Obviously, a lot of their documents did survive. We have all these texts in Egypt. Just really weird claims. Anyways, next, Danny says there are no scholars that accept anything he says on the Hebrew text being first, and Ammon responds by saying Africanus does. So in other words, it's this idea of like, surely, like, if you're going to make a view that's convincing, like, surely it's convinced some scholars, right? Like if you think about any view out there for the Bible or whatever, like, it's really easy to find a scholar, at least one scholar out there that believes something, even the most wild things. So it's like, what are the chances that nobody agrees with Ammon on something like the whether the Hebrew text of the Old Testament was written before the Greek text? So it's like that is just so unlikely that everybody in the world, every scholar in the world, would reject his view, especially when he's not even a biblical scholar. He does not, if anything, he has probably what, one, two, three formal training classes in the Bible at most, and yet he feels confident enough to go against all of scholarship. And yes, of course, he conveniently ignores all of their arguments, and if you could just watch videos of him, he doesn't understand why people think that the Hebrew text was written first. So, um, in this interview, Ammon goes, "Yes, there actually is a scholar that agrees with me." And Danny's like, "What? Okay." And then Ammon's like, "Africanus." Now, Africanus was someone that lived over 1,000 years ago, like 1,500 years ago. He's not a scholar by what anybody means by a scholar today. Like, imagine having a view that everybody rejects, and the best you can come up with, as far as someone that could corroborate or agree with you on their view, is someone that lived 1,500 years ago. That is the best that you could do. And guess what? Even in the interview, Ammon Hillman specifically says that Africanus only agrees with him on stuff like Daniel or Genesis. Or I think there's one other thing. Like, not even the whole thing. So even Africanus, the one person that he could quote, disagrees with him a lot. Just silliness. Of course, Africanus, even if he did say that, which it's highly doubtful because he's misquoted Africanus before, like, why would anybody care what he says? Africanus did not have anywhere close to the documents we have today. He doesn't have the training we have today. He didn't have the computer programs that we have that we can look at the text. He didn't have all the commentaries available to him. At best, if he wants to talk to someone that's really knowledgeable, he's going to have like what, 4 or 5 people locally, and then if he wants to talk to someone more than that, then he has to travel for that. No, like, in this day and age, you can literally go online and you can buy a commentary. You can buy hundreds and hundreds of commentary of the Gospel of Matthew or Genesis or whatever, and you can literally look at the top experts from around the world all at our fingertips. Like, we have so much more knowledge and ways to understand the text, and we have formulaic ways of reading ancient texts. We have standards that allow us to remove bias in the conversation, which of course we're going to get to later, which is what Ammon does not do. Yeah, no scholar disagree. No scholar even agrees with 99% of what Ammon says. There's this big talk about how Carl Ruck, the one person you think would agree, he disagrees on pretty much everything. You can check out my video on my channel for that as well that I mentioned earlier. On the same topic, Carl Ruck believes Jesus was a myth, which is a wild view. Very, very few scholars even believe that. Even the most liberal, non-conservative ones that someone like Bart Ehrman, who spends all of their day, rejecting the Bible, trying to make arguments against the Bible, and Carl Ruck doesn't even. I mean, at least Bart Ehrman agrees that Jesus actually existed. Like, it's just an odd thing to doubt. But even him, okay, so Carl Ruck, you would think that Carl Ruck, Ammon's friend, would agree with Ammon or be sympathetic to arguments, but no, like, he just flatly rejects them. And uh, what's really important here in this conversation is that Carl Ruck does not think that Jesus existed, that it's all a myth. And Ammon says, well, it doesn't matter whether it's a myth or historical. What matters is what the text says. But the thing is that Ammon's views rely on the text being historical. If it's a myth, then his views just don't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense why someone would write a text like Ammon thinks it is as a 21st century historical journalistic account where it's just describing this happened and then this happened and this happened and this happened. Like, for whatever reason, the writer of Mark was just detailing exactly as it had happened, or what he was pretending like it happened. Like that type of literature, someone Ammon, like classicist, he should know that doesn't exist in that world. Even what they call history was not history in that time period, especially compared to what we have today. Ammon reads the text like a 21st century newspaper document. And why that's important is because Ammon just simply does not understand just the basics of why everybody disagrees with him on this topic. Why scholarship, even the most liberal, non-conservative people that have every reason to reject the Bible or make Jesus look bad, the reason why they reject Ammon's views, one of the big reasons, is because the text is not just some straightforward historical account. And I'll give you an example of it right now. So, this is what they call a Markin sandwich. A lot of scholars call it that. There's other words for it as well. So you have the bun, the beef, and the bun. All right? And this happens all throughout Mark. What Mark does is he takes one story and then a similar story or the same story, puts it at the end, and then puts another narrative right in between it. Sometimes there's multiple narratives right between it. The idea is to create parallels. And this time, this is Mark 5:21-24, and this is a story of Jairus' daughter. So Jairus, a synagogue leader, comes to Jesus begging him to heal his dying daughter. Jesus agrees to go with him. And then, on the way, there is a healing of a woman with bleeding. Now, if you don't know anything about, scholarly views on this topic or whatever, you're going to miss this. But this is why scholarship is so important that it can help us point this out. So people that have spent a lot of time analyzing the text. So the Mark 5:25-34, the healing of the woman that was bleeding. So while on the way to Jairus' house, a woman who has been suffering from a bleeding condition for 12 years touches Jesus' cloak and is instantly healed. Jesus stops to acknowledge her and has a conversation with her, even though Jairus is in urgent need to reach his daughter. Let's be realistic here, okay? Jesus would, maybe I shouldn't. I won't say that. Okay, let's keep going. Then, after that is broken up, next there's a continuation of Jairus' daughter story. After the woman is healed and the moment is concluded, messengers arrive to inform Jairus that his daughter has died. Jesus proceeds to Jairus' house where he raises the girl from the dead. Now, what I want to put forward to you is that this line of narrative cannot be a coincidence, okay? This is a special way that the writer of Mark has put these stories together. And it is very unlikely that this happened in the historical world, in the historical past, exactly like this. Why is that? Why do I think that? One, it cannot be a coincidence that both women were suffering for 12 years. The daughter, was suffering since birth. She was 12 years old. The second woman, she was suffering with a blood condition for 12 years. That is an insane coincidence. It just doesn't make sense that one, Mark would include this. Like, how would he even know this? But two, if he did know it, it's just still like a random. It's like, oh, they both had 12. How weird, interesting. No, like these are symbolic numbers. The number 12 is used a lot in the Gospels and like thinking about like the 12 disciples. 12 is symbolic because the number 12 signified like the 12 tribes of Israel. Let's keep going. That language. So if you look in our little picture here, it says, "Heal my daughter so she can be saved and live." Then in the next narrative, it says, "Daughter, your faith has saved you." But this daughter and the faith and saving, that is not referring to the daughter from above. It is still the second daughter. Additionally, it says, the woman says, "If I touch his cloak, I will be saved." And then, of course, Jesus says, "Who touched me?" And then then he says, "Daughter, your faith has saved you." Like, what are the coincidences? He's telling all of the women out there that they're a daughter, or that he's using this language of being saved. Additionally, in the third part, it says Jesus' house. It is in Jairus' house. The daughter is dead. The daughter is specifically used. The word daughter is dead, then raised, and then Jesus says, "Have faith." Now you might say, "Oh, that's just a coincidence," but these type of sandwiches happen all over the Mark text. I could point a whole bunch of them out to you. This is in Joel Anderson's Blue Collar Bible commentary, if you want to check out more. But anyway, so this is notes by Joel. He says, the good doctor who, what does it say, cleans and restores to life. I don't actually know what that means. Either way, I will leave up why there is these interesting narrative details to your research. Go check out our commentary and it'll talk about this. But anyways, there's two other things that really got me during this interview. One, Ammon says it's just translating. So they play a clip of Wes Huff responding to Ammon. And once again, Ammon talks almost the entire time, like all this nervous laughter, like, so stupid. Like, instead of actually like addressing his arguments, he just laughs and makes jokes and barely pays attention. Danny has to repeatedly say, "Hey, come on, be serious about this. Come on, I want an actual response." And in Ammon's response, well, actually, let's talk about what Wes says. Wes says, "Hey, we have to look at the text in its historical context. What is the writer thinking when they are writing? Because just words on a page don't have any inherent meaning until we ascribe meaning to them. If we look at a word that we have now, and we look at that same word in an English Bible from 2,000-3,000 years ago, even though it is still an English word, there's a huge chance that English word's going to have a lot different meaning than it does today. For example, Genesis 1. Someone like Ken Ham or a lot of conservative Christians will look at something like Genesis 1:1. It says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," which that's not even the best way to translate anyways, but assuming that it is, heavens and the earth. When people think of heavens, they think, oh, the stars in the sky. Or when God says in day 4, we'll place the sun and the moon in the sky. He really says the greater light, but whatever. So someone modern today is going to look at that and think, oh, he's putting the planets in the sky, the orbs, the gases in the sky. But no, in that ancient world, they were not thinking of it like that. They didn't know about these planets. They saw those as divine beings many times. And what is really interesting, because the text says that God let them rule over the sky, or whatever that realm, which is really weird thing to say if it's a ball of gas. So, long story short, if we do not realize our bias, if we do not make an attempt to look at the text from an ancient standpoint, we're not going to be able to translate the text well. We're not going to be able to interpret the text well. So when Wes says, We have to look into the mind of the ancient reader, and then Ammon says, it's just translating. It's just translating. It shows like he has no idea what he's talking about. Now you might think, oh, he's got a PhD. Well, clearly something went wrong in that process, okay? Because Ammon just doesn't know he clearly doesn't know the first thing about interpreting ancient texts. Like, that is 101, what you learn in your very first class of translating, of reading ancient text, is understanding what is in the mind of the ancient reader, so we don't incorporate our bias into an ancient text. And this is just basic anyway. So, like, even if Ammon thinks he's just translating, which is clearly not just translating to anybody who knows about translations, even if that's what he is doing, why wouldn't he listen to what West says? Why isn't it not good advice to look into what the ancient reader was thinking? Whatever. So yeah, additionally, he doesn't make any attempt to understand what Wes is thinking. So not only does he just like make some silly response that doesn't even debunk or disprove or make Wes wrong, like he didn't say any like why we shouldn't do what Wes is proposing that we do. Not only does he not do that, but he makes no attempt to understand what Wes is saying. So if you ask Ammon what he thinks Wes said, he has no idea, and it's pretty obvious when you look at the video that I did with Ali when we responded. When Ammon watched that video on his live stream, and he pretty much misrepresents it, and he makes jokes, never actually addresses any of the arguments. I mean, the Ammon's argument is just basically big and nuh-uh, I'm not, doing all of that. I'm not trying to understand the context. I'm just translating. Like, it's just as easy as just plugging in random words. This one corresponds to this, but that's just not how translation works at all, especially with ancient texts. The word gay today means a lot different than the word does 50, 100 years ago. The same thing applies then. You can't look at a text that meant something in 500 BC and just automatically assume that that's what it meant in the writing of biblical times. Not to mention that even when he references all these other texts where he just translates, those are nonsense in itself. You can check out Stephen Nelson's video on that. Lastly, I want to talk about what happens at the very, very end of the stream, where they talk about why Ammon was fired. And Ammon continues to give this false narrative where he was fired because he was presenting views that people just didn't like, that were just too non-conservative for him. People just didn't like the idea that Jesus was in the park with this naked boy. It's just nonsense. We have the deposition where it explicitly describes why he was fired. He was fired, one, because he was stalking people, stalking women. He admitted to stalking. He was a janitor. You cannot be a janitor and be stalking people. Janitors have keys to places, to all the places in the building. That's just a huge security risk. That alone, everything else wouldn't, if he didn't do everything else, he would still get fired for stalking. Nonetheless, the completely inappropriate and just messed up things that he said to multiple women and one man, where he seemed to be flirting with them. And in the video, he says that he made them uncomfortable, and that's why he got fired. He made a few girls uncomfortable. Like, the things he said were just completely inappropriate. That alone might have been worth him getting fired. Like, why would you want a janitor to be going around saying sexually inappropriate things to people? That alone is just not something that anybody wants from an employee. So yeah, Ammon continues to give this false narrative, which is just completely misleading, and he coincidentally doesn't mention anything about the stalking, anything about the sexually inappropriate things that he did. But no, people think he got fired just because he made a few people feel uncomfortable, which of course, what he doesn't say specifically is that even though he references the sexual misconduct, which he doesn't completely describe as being sexual misconduct, he just says that he made people uncomfortable. But guess what? When he says that he made people uncomfortable, people think that he's talking about like the props in a play or his views. No, like it's very clearly things that just anybody would get fired for, no matter what views you have on religion or whatever else. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe. More content on this coming soon. This was just 2 hours of just repeated after repeated after repeated just nonsense claims. I feel like everybody has a lower IQ after watching this. Not this video, the Ammon's video. But I don't know, maybe you feel that about this video. That's okay too. Anyways, like and subscribe. Check out later videos coming on. And see you guys next time.